snowy freezing weather, and regional ground attacks have begun to give way to long-range missile launches. With temperatures expected to drop below 20 degrees Celsius, Russian troops appear to be at their most vulnerable. The Russian army, which has suffered a heavy defeat against the Ukrainian armed forces for about 10 months, seems to have a new rival, which is cold weather conditions. Winter has come, and temperatures dropped to -11 degrees Celsius this weekend in the Ukrainian frontline city of Bakhmut, under brutal attack from the Russians, and at no point did it rise above freezing. Gradually, the mud and rain of late autumn will be replaced by snow and cold of -20 degrees or worse. Still, both sides have reason to keep fighting, but the Russian army cannot find a valid reason anymore. Russian soldiers who have sacrificed their lives for months because of Vladimir Putin's ambitions have lost all their discipline due to difficult conditions and the pressures by the Ukrainian armed forces. They also know that with their decreasing numbers, they are helpless against Ukrainian attacks. On the other hand, Vladimir Putin and his allies are feeling the pulse in order to make new mobilization decisions in order to satisfy this troop starvation in the Russian army. Rumors are circulating in the Kremlin backstage that the latest mobilization has not changed anything in the region and that a new mobilization decision is needed. At the same time, Kadyrov, who has been Putin's biggest supporter from the very beginning of the war, is constantly looking for new soldiers in Chechnya to be sent to Ukraine. However, the Chechen people do not seem to agree with Kadyrov on this issue. Kadyrov, who planned to send a total of 100,000 Chechen soldiers to Ukraine, was able to send only 20,000 Kadyrovite Chechen fighters to the region. Considering that some of them joined the ranks of Ukraine and approximately 10,000 lost their lives, Kadyrov has not been able to provide the necessary support to the Russian army in recent days. President of the Chechen Republic, Ramazan Kadyrov, a federal element of the Russian Federation, announced that the mobilization will continue in Chechnya. On October 8th, the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, Sergei Shoigu, informed Russian President Vladimir Putin that the partial mobilization had apparently ended and that 82,000 soldiers had been sent to Ukraine. On October 31st, the Kremlin avoided questions about the lack of a presidential decree confirming the end of mobilization, despite claiming that the latest mobilization wave had completed days ago. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of the Russian Federation claimed that it was instructed to notify the units responsible to it that the partial mobilization was completed by the 1st of November. However, Kadyrov does not hide the fact that he is still looking for soldiers to send to the front lines. In his own words, Kadyrov admits that this mobilization decision did not work and states that the Chechen soldiers fled the war. As we just mentioned, no one in Chechnya wants to go to war, and between 70 to 80,000 Chechens refuse to go to the front to fight against Ukraine and seem to be preparing a rebellion against Kadyrov and mobilization. Kadyrov's latest video contains Chechens' reproaches that Russia did not go to the front to support the Ukraine war. At the same time, this mobilization decision began to cause conflicts in Chechnya. Chechens, who did not want to go to Ukraine after being drafted, clashed with the troops affiliated with the Chechen leader Ramazan Kadyrov. While it was learned that the protesters were carrying grenades, OMON teams, the special police branch of the Russian National Guard, were sent to the region. While the international press was announcing the developments in Chechnya, the stress that the conflict could turn into a civil war in the country in the early 1990s increased existing fears. Clashes broke out near the village of Samashki, on the border of Chechnya and in Ingushetia. Against Putin's mobilization decision, a group came face to face with Kadyrov's militia. Hand grenades were also seen in the protest group, which was armed with automatic weapons. OMON teams were urgently dispatched to the region. Russian President Vladimir Putin is reportedly aware of the situation moment by moment. While Kadyrov refrained from commenting on the subject, he stated that more than 70,000 Chechen fighters would be sent to Ukraine. On television, he said, "We always want to live in peace and reconciliation with all countries. However, some countries do not want this. We will show that we are not kidding." The information that almost all of these soldiers fled or resisted was leaked to the press. Even though there are many reasons for these escapes and resistances, Chechen fighters do not want to go to the front on Putin's orders and become cannon fodder. The Russian army suffered heavy losses in the war in Ukraine, and Chechen fighters are no exception. On October 24th, Dozens of Chechens were killed in an artillery attack on their building in the town of Kayuri in the Kherson region. In a post published on the same day, Kremlin-backed dictator Ramzan Kadyrov claimed that Chechens in Ukraine were defending their region and family values and suggested significantly increasing the number of men sent to war from Chechnya. "We have about 1.6 million people," he said, although in 2021, Chechnya's population was 1.51 million, including 420,000 pensioners and 551,000 children, according to Russian census figures. Kadyrov said, "I don't know exactly what the male population that could be sent to war is, but it is at least 300,000 to 400,000. Age does not matter. In any case, you should all be in the recruiting office and join the troops currently fighting." Accused of presiding over widespread human rights abuses during his 15-year tenure as Chechnya's head of state, Kadyrov has been one of the most ardent and aggressive advocates of Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, regularly criticizing Russian commanders for being too timid. In a video released on October 25th, Kadyrov falsely claimed that all of Ukraine is Russian territory and said that Ukrainians should not be captured, but instead burned. It was not clear whether Kadyrov was referring to the fighters or all Ukrainians when he uttered these words. Now, the authorities in Chechnya have launched an aggressive campaign to embarrass local men to volunteer for war in Ukraine. In a recent meeting with officials, parliamentary spokesman Magomed Daudov announced a new effort to explain the objectives of the special military operation in Ukraine, using the Kremlin's euphemism for its unprovoked war against Kiev, and said there are more than 1,000 vacancies in Ukraine. Shortly after this meeting, residents of the Republic of the North Caucasus began to receive messages from the clergy, asking them to encourage their relatives to join the police for service in Ukraine. There was no remarkable turn of events for the Chechen leader, who boasted that in April the Chechens had become an example for all the inhabitants of our huge country to fight voluntarily. When the Chechens arrived on the territory of Ukraine on the one hand, they joined the ranks of Ukraine, and on the other, the Chechens who guarded the fronts of the Russian army began to clash with the Russian soldiers and cause turmoil. It is stated in intelligence reports that Russian soldiers exhibited a serious fascist attitude towards Chechens. For this reason, Chechens are also in conflict with the Russians, who develop racist rhetoric against them. Kadyrov, representing the Chechen separatist movement in Germany, said that the mobilization in Chechnya was selective. He said former Chechen rebels and their relatives were particularly targeted from the restless republic's two wars against Russia in the 1990s and early 2000s. Suleimanov said, after identifying someone as supporting the Chechen independence, several men in military uniforms will come to his house and give a call notice. I just learned that the son and nephew of someone who fought with me was taken away in the recent days. Activists in Chechnya reported that recently applicants for foreign passports and relatives of people who oppose mobilization have also been targeted for call notifications. Opposition activists Ibrahim Yangulbayev said the protesters' sons, husbands and other relatives were sent to Ukraine involuntarily. Russian human rights activist Svetlana Ganushkina criticized the authorities for adopting humiliation tactics, which she described as primitive and illegal. Chechens do not want to participate in this war against their will. Their reaction against both Kadyrov and Russia is growing day by day. Every moment, the possibility of a civil war in Chechnya begins to be spoken about much more strongly. The danger for Putin and Kadyrov is increasing day by day. This type of rebellion will remove Kadyrov from his seat, but the damage it will do to Putin will be much greater, because the Russian army does not seem to have the strength to fight on a different front, and a rebellion in Chechnya may mean the full independence of those lands. Thanks for watching.